One characteristic feature of V.S. Naipaul's books were their instant readability. Naipaul documented migration of people, the collapse of the British Empire, the agonies of being in exile, and the struggle between belief and unbelief in more than a dozen novels. He created geographical, social, and cultural contexts where people told their stories with emotional ideas and symbolism.
Blackly comical, but nonetheless always humorous perspective that he brings to bear on the terrible difficulties of education, of a shortage of money, a shortage of dignified employment that he sees as being characteristic of nations that are moving out of the colonial and haven't still quite got into the decolonizing phase. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
In a career spanning over 50 years, Naipaul authored over 30 works of fiction and non-fiction that influenced post-war and post-colonial literature. They showcased his formidable gifts as a writer, his intellectual suppleness, humor, wit, and unique eye for detail. Naipaul's first novel, The Mystic Masseur, was published in 1955. His other novels which won him accolades were Miguel Street in 1959, A House for Mr. Biswas in 1961, An Area of Darkness in 1964, In a Free State in 1971, A Bend in the River published in 1979, The Enigma of Arrival published in 1987, India, A Million Mutinies Now in 1990, Away in the World in 1994.
See, we have to distinguish between Naipaul the man and Naipaul the writer. He's a unique writer, one of the greatest in the last 50 years. He had his flowing prose, his subtle sense of humor, and with some of his earlier works, his novels were absolutely outstanding. They're amongst the greatest that have been written probably since 1950.
There is no denying Naipaul's penchant for creating controversy. His two books on Islamic fundamentalism, Among the Believers in 1981 and Beyond Belief in 1998, stirred passions and provoked extreme reactions. In both books, Naipaul explored the non-Arab Islamic world. He traveled to 4 nations, Iran, Pakistan, Malaysia and Indonesia, first in 1979 and then in 1995 to study the converted people and their attempts to establish a modern Islamic state. Naipaul believed that Islam has had a calamitous effect on converted people and that it has destroyed their past and history. Predictably, it drew the wrath from the author's fraternity. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.